Good morning and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our daily get together live here on Facebook every day of the week, 10:30 in the morning, where we gather news and headlines from all over the country, all over the city, all over the state, and we take a look at questions and comments and stories you may have to share or have questions about so that we can enjoy our lives here in Puerto Vallarta as a community of English-speaking locals. It is always a pleasure to get together with you. And today, on Saturday, April 24, we have all kinds of news to share. Luna is in the house. Today we're going to talk about nuts, a nutty story. I don't know if you like your nuts salty or limey or how you like your nuts, but I will be talking about nuts later on today. We're going to talk about a few new guidelines for COVID-19 as Mother's Day is approaching, and a couple of other this and that's that keep me occupied and curious, like Afghanistan. Well, we won't get into Afghanistan just yet, but let me take a quick look at who is in the house, but not before inviting you to let us know if you're new. If you're new, just write the word new on your comments and we'll give you a nice little welcome. And if there's something super important that you want to ask about, please do so by adding the letter Q to your comment. That way we'll make sure that we don't miss it, or we'll try our best not to miss it. Let's see who's joining us today. Dave is checking in from Larkspur. Well, from over there. Boston's in the house, thanks to Jennifer. It's great to see you. Brett is in Seattle. If I recall correctly, it's a vaccine maneuver. I hope things are going well. Bye-bye, Luna. See that? See, now she's gone. Fine, be that way. Okay, so let's see who else is here. Mark is checking in from Minnesota. It's great to see you. Boom, pirim, pam, 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 pam. John is in Colonia Lázaro Cárdenas here in Puerto Vallarta, back. Weather is great. I'm glad you enjoy it. Weather is still quite lovely. Thank you very much for that, Matthew. It's a pink shirt day because we're talking about nuts. Nuts. How do you like your nuts, you guys? In fact, if you're drinking beer and you have to reach out for some munchies, what kind of munchies do you enjoy with your beer? Let's see. Sherry is now blowing off yard work to be with Coffee and Headlines. Good for you, Sherry. I'm glad that you have your priorities all figured out. I love it. Okay, so I don't see any immediately important question. Oh, Bill wants to say good morning, Paco from Dorian. Bill, we need to thank you for a great dinner last night at Cayo Blanco. Thank you so much for letting me know. I hope that when you're out and about, you mention the fact that you have heard about these wonderful restaurants through Coffee and Headlines. No, I don't get a commission or anything, but it's always good to nurture the cluster and the community with people having awareness of who we are and what we do. Along those lines, yesterday I had the unfortunate situation of stumbling upon a series of posts on Facebook where a brand new restaurant called Hamburger Mary's was being trashed. And it is unfortunate the way, um, let's just say, I'm just happy that we don't do that here at Coffee and Headlines. And I'm very grateful that for the most part we try to keep our conversations positive and nurturing. And that is something that is very important to yours truly and very much appreciated as we learn more about what's going on in our city. Let's see. Logan is finishing up his iced coffee. I'm good to go. Look at this. I found these cute little stirrers at Walmart. So I'm good to go. Iced coffee for the rest of the season. Let's see what else we have. Mushi ordered from Siam Cuisine. That's good to hear. It's making me feel like I have a craving for Siam. I haven't had Siam in over 2 weeks, so maybe it's something I should pursue this weekend because their food is fantabulous. Anyhow, let us get started with some news, and we'll talk about peanuts later on. And all that good stuff. I'm having so much fun reading your comments. This is great. Angelo's in the house, and Lynn is joining us from Cinco de Diciembre. Janet really misses Vallarta. Janet, what can we do for you? If there's something about the city that you miss, just let us know. This is what we try to do. Okay. Paco, can you just FYI everyone here that Siam de los Tules is on holidays until May 4th. Emiliano Zapata location is open as normal. What did you do with my favorite sexy waiter? Where did you send him on vacation? Should I be chasing him around the city? Please let me know. Anyhow, let us get started with our news and we'll take it from there. Mother's Day. Mother's Day is around the corner, and Mother's Day is part of our headlines today. It is always celebrated in Mexico on May 10th, as opposed to a Sunday, as it is done north of the border. And it is considered to be one of the most popular celebrations in our country, and one in which, curiously enough, department stores always have important sales on things like home appliances and kitchen pans and such. So much for celebrating our Mexican mothers by buying them new things so that they can keep working in the house with. Anyhow, it is also a date in which many visit local cemeteries to pay tribute to their deceased mothers and grandmothers. And as such, the state of Jalisco has issued the very first Mother's Day specific sanitary guideline, closing down all cemeteries in the state from Friday, May 7th at 6 p.m. To May 11th at 6 p.m. It is unclear at this time if additional guidelines will be issued for shopping malls, restaurants, and department stores, which are other places where families tend to gather for this particular celebration. Needless to say, if we learn about any other sanitary guidelines, we'll definitely keep you posted to that effect. Moving on, just as we announced yesterday, our state is back on the green in the national COVID-19 stoplight. Yay! Along with Coahuila, Veracruz, Chiapas, Campeche, and Guanajuato. There are other states that are still struggling with higher numbers of COVID cases and remain in the orange, such as Baja California Sur, Chihuahua, Mexico City, Hidalgo, Quintana Roo, and Tabasco. According to Health Undersecretary Hugo Lopez Gatell, 15,874,809 vaccines have been applied in the country since December, when vaccination began. I have another bit of important news to share with you. Yesterday, we reported that teacher vaccination in Puerto Vallarta would take place at the convention center. Well, As it turns out, and due to a lack of communication between the convention center and the Secretary of Education, it turns out that the convention center is not available. It was previously booked, according to its director. There is another event taking place at the same time. It was an honest mistake, commented Convention Center Director Magali Fregoso. And as of right now, the state's education secretary has not announced a new location for the vaccines, but we will definitely keep you posted once we learn where the vaccines for teachers will be applied this coming week and coming up at the beginning of May. Let me turn over to your comments and questions just to see where we are. Boom, ba-ding, bam, boom, bam, beam. Um, oh, great report. Thank you very much, Logan. I've been wanting to go to Bonito Kitchen at the Rio Quale. I have not yet done this, but I keep hearing that it is a great restaurant to visit. I understand that their dim sum is really wonderful. I'd love to hear if anybody has had this experience, because this is always a good thing. Some people I know call Mother's Day El Día del Deporte Nacional. Well, I can see how that would be the day of the national sport, which is mothers. Mothers are culturally very, very significant in Mexico. So it is a very, very important day. Lots of flowers, lots of mariachi, lots of serenades, lots of restaurant activity, and lots of new refrigerators and stoves and pots and pans and things like that. Um, wasn't one of the Walking Wednesday tours going to be the cemetery across from the fish market? The answer is yes, Joe. Yes, this is scheduled for some point in which I happen to be in that part of town. Usually, the walking tours happen as a combination of where you want me to go with where I will be on a certain day, and of course, how the weather is looking. So yes, the cemetery is one of the walks that we have pending, and it'll happen sometime in the future. Um, Terry asks, is there a holiday here like Memorial Day in the U.S., a day honoring service people? The answer is no. Let's see what else we have. Nothing major, so let us turn over to the what's next? The weather, of course. If I were a character in Mortal Kombat, my fatality would involve a chainsaw, a blender, and a clown. Okay, fine. Well, I can tell that a new movie has been premiered, or maybe a new series that I don't know much about. The weather right now it feels like 27 degrees. It's 26 degrees. It is 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity is low at 43%. And today we can expect a partly cloudy day with a high temperature of 31, low temperature 19. Tomorrow, Sunday, it'll be partly cloudy as well with a high temperature of 31, low temperature of 20. Where did those 32s go? Ah, there they are. Monday, it'll be mostly cloudy throughout the day, and it'll be a high temperature of 32, low temperature of 20. Humidity, here we go. Anyhow, let me tell you that I have continued watching this series called The Americans, and now it has everything to do with Afghanistan and Ronald Reagan. And it is one of those things in which, somebody was asking just yesterday about where can we read more about the history of Puerto Vallarta. Well, I wish I could find the one article or the one book that will give me a broader perspective of what was going on between the United States and Afghanistan during the Reagan years, because this is touched upon on the series, and I'm very, very intrigued about that. Let's see what else I see in your comments. We do have a Labor Day on May 1st, so some places could be closed. This is Labor Day, not so much service people. I think what Terry meant by service, she meant military service. See, I don't even know what Memorial Day stands for because it is a holiday that happens up in the U.S. So if it has to do with soldiers and service people, um, it's we don't have such a day. So anyhow, that's my brief comment on the Americans. If you haven't watched the series, it is so beautifully done. It is so amazing to see the struggle that these Russian spies went through in the United States during the 70s and early 80s to try to reconcile um, their faith to their country and their new lives here in the United States. So that's very much on my mind. Also on my mind is the fact that recently somebody said, "Well, I really like Luis Miguel's music." And I don't like Luis Miguel's music. And I just read this morning that Luis Miguel has not paid child support for 2 years. So I wonder how you feel about that. Do you continue to listen to the music of someone who is not paying child support? Do you support Kevin Spacey after he was accused for being a sexual abuser? Hervé von Karajan was a very important German conductor, but he was a Nazi sympathizer. So, do you listen to his records? These are just crazy thoughts that keep me awake at night. But that is just these are just rhetorical questions. Feel free to elaborate on them or not. Now, I want to talk to you about a nutty story that I found for you, and I don't know if you enjoy peanuts in general or in particular. Let me let me set myself in peanut mode, and then we can come back to my rhetorical questions about Kevin Spacey and the Nazis and so forth and so on. Let's see. Entering peanut story mode. Going once, twice. Here we go. Have you ever tried these nuts? Do these look familiar to you? We call them cacahuate japonés, which translates to Japanese peanuts. In English, they go ass cracker nuts. So if you've seen this at the supermarket and you have enjoyed them, um, good for you. If you don't know anything about them, they are shelled peanuts that are covered with a crunchy wheat based layer. You can find them in every supermarket here in Mexico. They're truly popular. We usually have them just like that, or we add some lemon or lime to them. Um, and but I might as well break the news. If you happen to be traveling to Japan and you said, "Well, I'm in Japan, I might as well buy some Japanese nuts," guess what? You are not going to find them there. So how is it that in Mexico we have Japanese nuts that you cannot find in Japan? Well, our story begins in 1932 with this immigration record belonging to a 22-year-old Japanese man named Yoshige Nakatani. Yoshige. We're going to call him Yoshi because we like him. We like him very much. He was one of hundreds of thousands of Japanese citizens that migrated to Mexico in the 1930s in search of prosperity and fortune. He landed in Manzanillo and was quickly hired by Heijiro Kato. And Heijiro Kato was a prosperous Japanese businessman who owned one of the most successful department stores at the time called El Nuevo Japón. Now, department stores in Mexico. When we think about department stores in Mexico, we think of time-honored brands such as Liverpool, which we know because we have one here in Puerto Vallarta. It was originally called El Puerto de Liverpool, by the way. Or we think about El Palacio de Hierro, which is another fabulous department store, but we don't have one of those here in Puerto Vallarta. Back in the 1930s, these stores were already in existence, and El Nuevo Japón was an equally important competitor. In addition to El Nuevo Japón, Heijiro Kato also owned an important button factory, and this is where Yoshi, the hero of our story, landed a job in Mexico City shortly after arriving. And it was then that he settled in La Merced, which is a merchant neighborhood in Mexico City where most of the community of Japanese immigrants had settled. And it was there that after a year after arriving, he met and fell in love with Emma Avila, who was a young Mexican woman, and they were married the year after. So all is going well for Yoshi and his wife. They started making babies and they started being happy and blending in with Mexico's culture. But then things went sour in 1941 when the war between the United States and Japan resulted in adverse consequences for Japanese immigrants' families living in Mexico. Many were kicked out of the country. And this forced many Japanese owned businesses to close in Mexico, and particularly those belonging to Cato, as he was thought to be a spy for the Japanese government. So a year and a half after the war, his department store was shut down, and our hero found himself unemployed and having to maintain his wife and five children. Yes, over a decade, he managed to have five children. So what do you do? He found himself a job as an apprentice at a candy shop where he had the inspiration to invent this wheat flour based covering for peanuts, and he and his wife started making them from scratch at home. Now, his children, shown here as young adults, recall that the peanuts became so popular and production increased in such a way that long lines of people formed around their home to shop for this unique product, which became the rage in Mexico City. And of course, this is how we came to know the cacahuate, as this particular peanut, as cacahuate japonés, or Japanese peanuts. The product continued to prosper through the following decades, and eventually the original brand of Nippon peanuts was swallowed, no pun intended, by La Costeña, which is a large Mexican food related corporation. But the legacy of the original family brand will always remain part of Mexico's popular culture history. And that, my friends, is the story of the cacahuate japonés. Next time you find yourselves at a supermarket and you run into this brand, be mindful of this fascinating story in which two cultures, intersected in our country, and one man had to use his imagination and his creativity to stay afloat, and ended up creating one beautiful, popular Mexican food staple. The end. That was my story of the day. Let me take a look at, yes, the end. Let me take a look at some of your comments, and we will continue with our broadcast. Let us see. Logan thinks that The Americans is such an underrated series. So glad that people are continuing to discover it. I know that this series is important for Logan. And Logan, I don't think I'm committing an indiscretion by saying that your parents worked with or for the FBI. So I'm always fascinated by the stories that you share when you talk about you, Mr. and Mrs. Logan, of course. Let us see what else we have. Yes, crunchy. People like cacahuate japonés. The Japanese peanuts are amazing. Mushi says they're addictive. Dale says, love those nuts. Well, now you have it. Scott says, our favorite. Terry says, can we expect a peanut man with this story? I am your peanut man. Embrace me. Dave says, I like my peanuts in a sauce with chicken, usually Thai style. Well, that's a great way to enjoy peanuts. Absolutely. So yummy with limones flavor, japonés. Sean, I wonder if you are in Puerto Vallarta, if I'm going to run at your restaurant at some point in the near future. Mijal is one season ahead of me. And that's okay. Michal and I are going to get together in the near future to discuss the series because I need to talk to someone about this. This is crazy. Mushi says, just cover up those health warnings with your fingers and snack away. Well, it is Saturday, so we're not paying much mind about health warnings. Let's see. Albert brings some perspective to holidays that take place elsewhere. Veterans Day honors the service of veterans. Memorial Day honors those lost or killed in service of the country. That would be, I believe, north of the border. Let's see. Raimundo always brings back Japanese peanuts to Canada. I love it. Um, Brett offers a link to a video on Brazil nuts. Thank you very much. I like my nuts. I really, really do. Um, uh, Vegan chickpea puffs. I have not tried those, but they sound fascinating. I love chickpeas. Thank you very much. Uh, Terry decided not to try them. There you go. That's okay. Christy says, "Who knew?" I love it. Bing, bum, 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 bum. And by the way, this is not an original story. I told you I referenced this from a very well written article in Mexico Desconocido magazine, Unknown Mexico, and I'll be happy to link that in the show notes so that you don't think I'm just telling you things. And on the other hand, I may have been referencing another article, but that's what we usually do here. Um, ¿Cuántos años tiene Luna? Or should I never ask a lady her age? She is around 5. The story that I'd heard was that it was an accident. He was preparing batter for a Japanese dish. I have not heard this story, Matthew, but then again, the internet is really funny because sometimes you start reading a story and then you start researching different sources and it starts looking like a cut and paste from one source to the next. And I'm experiencing that with a story that I'm putting together for an upcoming Music Monday feature. I'm trying to find the real story behind something, and all I'm finding is stuff that seemed to be copied and pasted from Wikipedia elsewhere. So there may be something to this because in the 2 stories I have read, the family was referenced directly. So given the fact that the family was contacted for comment, then it must be the way they told it. Then again, for all I know, it was an accident. Let's see what else. I am from Mexico and I didn't know that story. Well, I am so glad we're creating connections, Raimundo. I mean, that's what we do here at Coffee and Headlines. Let's see. Oh, Logan says, now that they're retired, we can disclose that. Well, woof, I'm glad that nobody's going to be knocking on my door for, like, disseminating family and national secrets. Let's see what else. I love the history of Japanese culture in Mexico. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There is a lot of that. In fact, this Mexican spicy thing we call chamoy was actually invented by the Japanese people that came here. And this is why you find a lot of Japanese and Chinese restaurants all over the place. There were a lot of immigrants, not expats as we call them today. There were a lot of immigrants that came to our country during the 20th century. And something similar could be said about the French who settled in the town of Navidad, for example, near Puerto Vallarta. When the French Revolution got ugly in Mexico City, a lot of French people escaped and settled in the hills of Jalisco, among many other places. And it is said, I've heard this from many people, although I have not seen it in writing anywhere, that there are many fair-skinned men and women in towns like Navidad and Mascota and so forth and so on, as a result of the European, the French people that went to hide in these small towns when things got ugly for France and Mexico. Let's see. Is Luna just an indoor cat? Yes, she is. She's never been outside. Let's see what else. Nya, 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 nya. I think we're there. This was a very interesting story. Now I'm going to read more about what happened to the Japanese in Mexico during World War II. Christina, I'm going to read more about what happened between Ronald Reagan and Afghanistan, and maybe we can trade stories. Anyhow, this is, oh yes, Catherine brings up a sordid moment of our history. Yes, things were very tragic at some point between these immigrants and Mexico. They were not treated kindly, and we can get into that one of these days. Anyhow, I think we're there. This is what we have prepared for today. I am so very grateful that you found the Japanese peanut story fascinating. I just think it's one of those things that, we walk into the supermarket any day and we take these things for granted because they're always there. So I'm very glad that we shared this story with you today. Tomorrow, as you know, is Sunday. And Sunday will be Sunday Fun Day as always. We still don't know what we're going to talk about, who we are going to dish, or what we're going to dissect. But I certainly hope it'll be saucy. Between now and then, please stay happy, stay kind, get as many nuts in your mouth as you possibly can and enjoy them if you can, if you don't have allergies to them. And of course, stay in touch. Hopefully, we'll get together sometime soon, maybe even tomorrow. Have a great day.